Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Strategic Planning Committee today. Thanks everybody who has attended. I know it's a little bit cold, hopefully it'll warm up, we'll see. So we're ready to start the meeting. So just on the membership of the committee, I think everyone here is a member of the committee. We haven't got anyone substituting today. We've got one apology from Councillor Thompson. Councillor Moore, we're not sure, but he's not here, so we're going to take that as he's not coming. So item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. Are people happy with those minutes? I wasn't here, so that's it. Everyone's happy? Okay, that's good. Any declarations of interest or lobbying will go round just to make sure everyone's had the opportunity. Councillor Sokal?
Yeah, Chair. I think I got an email from Councillor Martin Bolt, just highlighting some correction where you say Meltham Road should be Halifax Road. Yeah, thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. I got the email from Councillor Bolt. Regarding item number 14, I am also the ward councillor for Crossland Moor Neverton Ward. I haven't actually been contacted by any residents apart from clarifying a post on social media.
Councillor Pinnock?
None, Chair, apart from the email from Councillor Bolt, which I noted.
Yep. Councillor Hammer?
The ubiquitous Councillor Bolt contacted me, no one else has, so.
Thanks, and that's the same for me, just from Councillor Bolt. We've got that in the update, haven't we, anyway? All right. Mission of the public, it's a public meeting. Thanks everybody who's attended. Obviously, people registered to speak. I'll invite you to speak when it's the item in question. There's nothing on the agenda that's in private, so that's all fine. Public question time?
No questions, Chair.
No. And any deputations or petitions submitted?
No deputations or petitions.
Okay, great. We'll move on to the planning applications then. So we did site visits to 3 sites this morning, looked at those in detail. So we'll move straight on to the applications. So the first one is the application of Primrose Lane. Nick, I'll pass over to you as item 11.
Thank you, Chair. Good day, members. My name is Nick Hurst. I was a case officer for this application. The application seeks full planning permission for the erection of 77 dwellings and associated works. It is presented to the committee due to the level of public objection received. The site is a housing allocation within the local plan. Apologies. The site is a housing allocation within the local plan. To the north is woodland and then the Spen Valley Greenway. To the west is open greenbelt land, and to the south and east is the built environment. Vehicles would access the site via a single point on Darley Road, which connects to Halifax Road via Ripley Road. The site's topography falls to the north. Public rights-of-way run along the site's east, south and west boundaries, with the previously mentioned greenway to the north. The northern portion of the site includes part of the larger woodland area. The top right image is taken from approximately the southeast corner looking into the site. It shows a gradient of the site and the woodland in the distance. The bottom left image is taken from the western prow along the site's boundary near the northwest corner looking up into the site. Again, the topography is evident along with the properties in the distance adjacent to the site. This image shows the location of the point of access from Darley Road. Many of the trees visible would be removed to facilitate the access. So these images show the proposed layout and landscaping. The single point of access would lead to a looped arrangement and a single branching cul-de-sac. Trees would be planted at the front of most dwellings and elsewhere throughout the site. This is a closer image of the proposed north half of the site. The woodland would be largely retained and enhanced to function as public open space. Currently, the site is bisected diagonally by a Yorkshire Water pipe. To facilitate the development, it is proposed to be rerouted as shown on the blue dashed line. Due to operational necessities of the pipe, this would require routing through the woodland, and therefore there would be additional felling along the path of the pipe and the easement of the pipe. There would also be an open grassed area to host the attenuation bank that would also double as open space. And then this is of the southern half of the site. Pedestrian connections are to be provided to the east and west prior routes as well as to the northern greenway. The site has hosted historic coal mining. This includes 5 mine shafts being within the site, as shown on the left image. 4 of the 5 shafts have been suitably surveyed to allow development to be designed out of their zones of influence, with suitably worded conditions for assessment and remediation recommended by the Coal Authority. The 5th shaft, that circled in yellow, requires further investigation to determine whether Plot 6, 7 and Plot 10's garage can be built safely. The Coal Authority considers that the final shaft's investigations could be suitably addressed via a condition. However, while in agreement a condition could be used, the applicant and officers consider a predetermined survey to be more suitable. Such survey work would be expensive and time-consuming, however. Therefore, given that all of the matters are resolved, the applicant has requested that the proposal be presented to members at this time, which officers considered to be reasonable. 2 scenarios therefore exist, as detailed in the recommendation, to be delegated back to officers to resolve. The first is that the survey work is undertaken and identifies that the shaft can be addressed and suitably remediated, and therefore Plot 6, 7 and Number 10's garage can be built. Alternatively, if the shaft is found to prohibit these plots, an alternative plan removing Plots 6 and 7 and Plot 10's garage has been put forward, as shown in the bottom right of this slide, in which case the gardens of neighbouring plots would be extended, therefore there being no building works over the problem zone. So as noted, the site has a difficult topography. The top plan shows the development's response to the site's levels. Retaining works have been kept to a feasible minimum and mostly sited within rear gardens wherever possible. The lower image shows some typical street scene elevations. And here are some example house types with materials to be a mixture of artificial stone and render. And again, 2 more example elevations of note. The proposal includes 2 3-storey apartment buildings, which can be seen at the top of this image. Through you, Chair, I'll now invite Chris Dowes from Kirklees Highways to provide comments regarding the application.
Right, thank you, Nick. I think you've sort of covered the point of access, but is access from Darley Road by a single point of access. The internal layout comprises of traditional estate roads, shared surface streets and private drives. It's in the form of a looped arrangement rather than which minimises the need for cul-de-sacs. It's been designed so that it can accommodate Kirklees waste collection vehicles. It complies with the adopted guidance, and the intention is that it would be offered for adoption. The parking complies with our guidance fully, including visitor parking. It includes access to the Greenway, the Spain Valley Greenway. That's a cycle-stroke pedestrian route and two active travel routes to Primrose Lane along the western boundary. In terms of traffic generation, it's estimated that the site will generate 42 movements in the peak periods. This has been assessed at the junction of Ripley Road and Halifax Road, and that can be accommodated in that junction, which will operate well within capacity. And it's considered that the traffic generated by the development can be safely accommodated on the local highway network and will not result in any operational or safety issues. So from a highway perspective, there's no objection. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. The report before members outlines officers' full assessment of the proposal. In summary, the proposal seeks residential development on a housing allocation. The density of the development is acceptable and the housing mixture has been justified as per the report. Therefore, the proposal is considered to represent an effective and efficient use of a housing allocation, and the principle of development is acceptable. In terms of the design, the proposal has considered a high-quality approach to a difficult site, which would suitably blend into the existing built environment. While the level of tree loss proposed is unfortunate, officers are satisfied that this has been kept to as low as feasible to enable the point of access and to facilitate the necessary rerouting of the pipe. Furthermore, the tree planting proposed within the site, as seen on the right-hand image, would partly offset the loss. In terms of amenity, separation distances to neighbouring properties would meet or exceed the expectations of the Council's design guide, and there are no concerns over impacts upon existing residents' amenity. Likewise, the development would secure a high standard of amenity for future occupiers. The proposal would not prejudice the safe and effective operation of the highway, as per the highway officer's comments, And, as set out in the report, due regard has been given to all the material planning considerations and found to be acceptable. Finally, a full policy compliant set of planning contributions and obligations have been secured. This includes 15 affordable homes and public open space, and financial contributions towards education, off-site open space and sustainable travel. 144 objections were received to the proposal, however these are considered and addressed within the report. Officers therefore recommend approval of the application, subject to the outstanding call matter being resolved, delegated back to officers to be resolved, and the securing of a Section 106 agreement and conditions, as set out within the recommendation, with the minor amendment and clarification in the update. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Nick. So we'll go to representations. Sheila, can you read out the comments from Councillor David Hall, please?
Given that this site is designated for housing in the local plan, my concerns are based mainly on the Section 106 agreements. I am pleased that there will be restrictions on parking around the Halifax Road, Ripley Road junction, as this is already a major problem, particularly for cars exiting Ripley Road. Care must be taken to ensure that the existing disabled bays are considered. I fear that the imposition of double yellow lines along Darley Road will mean many people lose their on-street parking outside their house. Is there enough alternative parking on the estate to cope with this? The impact of traffic along Darley Road was one reason I proposed a second site entrance off Lower Hall, although this has now been discounted. The report mentions that there will be some houses for affordable rent. I am opposed to this as we have sufficient houses for rent in the area, and I would prefer these as low-cost starter homes for sale so that local families can get onto the housing ladder. May I thank the committee for taking the time to visit the site. They will have seen the limitations of Darley Road, but the number of parked cars is greater on an evening, and I hope they will take this into account when making a decision today.
Thank you. And then the next person we have to speak is Jonathan Ainley, on behalf of the agent. Jonathan, you've got 3 minutes to speak. I think you can see a timer. After 3 minutes, we'll have to stop you. So, yeah, off you go.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. I'm Jonathan Ainley from Savills. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this application on behalf of Jones Homes. As you have heard, Jones proposed to deliver 15 affordable homes on this allocated housing site. Enabling these are 62 market homes. Jones Homes is a regional house builder, having delivered homes across Kirklees for over 20 years, and with their regional head office in Cleckheaton. They achieve high quality design and build standards, and members will be familiar with their previous schemes across Kirklees. In addition to 20% of homes being affordable, this proposal also meets other policy requirements in full, with provision of on-site POS and a contribution of £118,000 to improve open space in the area, an education contribution of almost £119,000 for Headland C of E and Spen Valley High School, and a commuted sum for biodiversity net gain off-site. The application, as you've heard, has been thoroughly considered by the Council's Highways team, which has confirmed the impacts are assessed as acceptable. There's a package of highway improvement works, including traffic regulation orders, and almost £70,000 for sustainable travel measures, bus stop improvements and travel plan monitoring. This development is located next to Spen Valley Greenway, a high-quality pedestrian and cycle route linking into the heart of Liversidge and Cleckheaton town centres, where residents can access a range of amenities without the need for use of a car. Within 20 minutes walk are primary and secondary schools, health centres, chemists, Spen Valley Leisure Centre, along with a range of pubs, restaurants and employment opportunities. In addition, there are bus stops within a short walk. We ask members to take a positive view of these new family homes on this allocated site, particularly in the context of a national housing crisis and an imminent new MPPF, which is widely expected to massively boost the delivery of homes across the country, including in Kirklees. Furthermore, the Council is at the early stage of plan making and will inevitably need to consider Greenbelt release to meet its future housing needs. Delivering homes on allocated sites such as this will help to minimise that pressure. Notwithstanding all of this, we recognise the development needs to be of a high quality and right for the area. We concur with officers this has been achieved through collaboration with Jones Homes and the hard work and dedication of officers over a period of over 18 months following submission of the application. That process followed an initial pre-application inquiry dating all the way back to September 2021. It has been a rigorous process to reach this committee, as should be the case. If consent is granted by members and subject to discharging conditions, Jones Homes intend to make an early start on site to deliver the benefits quickly. The Coal Authority has raised no objection to proposed development and describes some further pieces of investigative work as not representing a fundamental issue prohibiting the determination of the planning application. Given all of the benefits of the proposal, we hope members will feel able to support the officer recommendation to approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's all the representations we have. So over to members. Any comments? Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. I have a particular interest in this site because my ward is next to this one, and I know the site quite well, including, as it does, access to the Greenway, which is if you talk to anybody in the Spen Valley, they will say what a wonderful facility that is. For a wide range of uses. I, in general, support this application. It is on an allocated site. It does, unfortunately, require the loss of quite a few trees, which is never a good idea, but in order to do the work that is required, it's probably necessary. However, it has occurred to me whether there was any way that an alternative route for the diversion of this water main could have been considered without going through the woodland, and therefore, as has already been said, you can't put a water main underneath where there are tree roots, so that effectively sterilises quite a bit of a tree cover. Now, I realise that the answer may be, no, we can't do that, and in any case, it's outside the red line of the application. But then some of the route of the diversion is outside the red line. And of course, on the Greenway already is a diverted sewer, which goes all the way from the former North Biley Works to Mitchell Lathes. So whether you could get another water main in around that, I don't know. I'm just investigating this on the grounds that trying to reduce the loss of trees. If you know, just tell me if I'm barking up the wrong tree. I do apologise for that. But I think that apart from that, as much has been done as possible to ensure that this is a high quality development by a firm whose headquarters is only a few hundred yards away from this site. In fact, sorry, probably slightly further than that, but it's fairly close, so they know it well. And I'd just like to consider people, if we could consider whether there was any possibility of changing the route of the diverted water main. But apart from that, I support the application.
Nick, could you answer that?
Yep, through you, Chair. I'm not a drainage engineer, however, it is something we did challenge the applicant on, and we did get feedback from Yorkshire Water on it as well. Ultimately, yes, this is where the pipe needs to go. It needs to start at point A and end at point B in the most effective route possible. It also needs to consider the topography. It can't go up and down hill, and it needs to be as gentle a route as possible. Given that the tree belt it's not just on the site, it keeps going to the sides as well, or as if you go further to the east, well, you're cutting the site, you're going across the site there anyway, you're hitting residential properties. It really is, unfortunately, where it needs to be without it being significantly off route and the like.
Okay. Councillor Sokol?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, like all others, I have been on the site visit this morning, so I have had a good site over there. Look around the piece of land. I think this is a good mixture of housing scheme, from 2 bedroom to 3, 4, and 5 bedroom, which all meet the needs of the wider community and including local community. Yeah. Application has given good section 106 contribution, both on affordable houses, which we already said is 15 units, public open space, which are always prefer to be on site. This is on site, and contribution to the off-site play area as well. Education, that's good contribution, and highways and the management maintenance as well. Chair, I've seen the Tarley Road on the way. I admit there are might be problem on the junction where the people, sometimes people park car on there, and I think on the coach officer have suggested they might consider to put some restriction on there, especially on those junction, which will remove my fear of the traffic. And I was concerned about the loss of trees on the woodland, which is 63 trees, but again, it will be replaced by 58 trees on the landscaping area and other area. And as Councillor Andrew Pinnick have said, this site is in the local plan, allocated for housing in the local plan. We can't do much. Say no, we can't say no. Yeah, and again, I've heard the statement from local ward councillor, David Hall. I think it seemed to me they have not really any objection on this, but he just wanted to some improvement on the one thing I want to ask officer to clear me. Where is the improvement of bus stops on especially on Halifax Road? Yeah, are there improvement to bus stop or improvement to bus shelters? Because we need a bus shelter, not just a bus stops.
Yeah, to answer that.
Yeah, it's shelters and real-time bus information on the stops on Halifax Road, yeah.
All of them, yeah. Thank you. Chair, in view of that, I think developer has met all the requirements and condition on this planning application. So I would like to go along with the officer recommendation to approve this application. Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
I'm
you're moving it.
I move it.
Second that. Okay, seconded by Councillor Pinnock. Did anybody else have any other comments on the application? No? Okay, well, we've had a proposer and a seconder, so we'll move to the vote. Sheila?
So you're voting on the officer recommendation, which is to delegate authority to the Head of Planning and Development to approve the application, further to the receipt of ground investigation report, the completion of the list of conditions, including those set out in the report, and a Section 106 agreement with the heads of terms listed, subject to a minor amendment to the road name on the sustainable travel element. Councillor Sokol?
For.
Councillor Lawson?
For.
Councillor Pinnock?
For.
Councillor Armour?
For.
Councillor Homewood?
For.
That's carried unanimous, Chair.
Great, thank you. So we'll move straight on then to the next application. This is agenda item 12, 21 dwellings with access from Leith Avenue, Home Bridge. So to you, Victor, I think, is it? Yeah, to your presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Victor Grayson, Development Management Master Planner in the Majors and Minerals team. I'm presenting this case on behalf of the case officer, Ellie Thornhill. This is item 12 on today's agenda. It's an application for full planning permission for a residential development of 21 dwellings. This application has been brought to committee due to the number of representations received and due to the development not providing all of the Section 106 obligations required in line with local and national planning policy. Former Ward Councillor Donald Firth also asked for the application to be brought to committee. The application site forms part of the southern edge of the village of Homebridge. It's located to the west or rear of 4 to 10 Bankfield Drive and to the side of 2 Lathe Avenue. In the local plan, the site is allocated for residential development, so the orange shading in the image on the right-hand side of this slide denotes the site allocation, that's site HS183. The site is 0.66 hectares in size, and the local plan gives the site an indicative capacity of 23 dwellings. To the southwest of the application site is a site allocated as safeguarded land in the local plan, that's the blue shading in the image on the right-hand side there. To the south of the application site is greenbelt land. A public footpath runs along the south edge of the application site, and the nearest part of the Peak District National Park lies approximately 650 metres to the south. The site is accessed from the terminus of Lathe Avenue, as seen in the image on the left here. The site slopes downhill from south to north. It's a greenfield site. It's currently grassed agricultural land surrounded by dry stone walls. And members, I'm sorry, the annotation for the photograph on the right should say that's a view looking south. The surrounding land is in agricultural use to the south and west and is in residential use to the east and north. The site is not within a conservation area and is not close to any listed buildings. On this slide, on the left-hand side, we have a view looking west across the application site. That is similar to the view that members had from the bus this morning during the site visit. And then the image on the right, apologies again, the annotation should say that's a view looking north across the application site. The north edge of the application site meets Dob Top Road, where this retaining wall currently supports the site, and that wall is approximately 2.8 metres in height. So that's the site, and then this is the applicant's proposed layout shown here. It's a development of 21 dwellings accessed via a new estate road that would be an extension of Lathe Avenue. That estate road would allow for future connection to the safeguarded land to the west, should development come forward at that site. The proposed layout pulls the new dwellings back from the eastern boundary of the site and from those existing neighbouring properties on Bankfield Drive. At the southeast corner of the site, between 2 Lathe Avenue and the proposed Unit 1, a connection is proposed to the existing public footpath to the south. A mix of detached and semi-detached properties is proposed, as is one short terrace of 3 dwellings. The dwellings would comprise 5 2-beds, 12 3-beds and 4 4-bed properties. Of these, 3 would be affordable units, provided as 2 2-bed units and 1 3-bed unit, all as first home dwellings. Those units are indicated with red dots on this plan. No publicly accessible open spaces are proposed within the site, although there are areas of landscaping, including to the north corner of the site and along the site's eastern boundary. This and the next 2 slides show 3 of the 5 house types proposed by the applicant. 2-storey dwellings are proposed across the site. All would have pitched roofs and all would be built of artificial stone with concrete roof tiles. On this slide, members, you see the Bamber 3-bed unit. This next slide is the Gosford 4-bed unit, which has an integral garage. And then this is another 4-bed unit, the Cheltenham, again with an integral garage. This slide shows the level changes across the site. The top section on this image, on this slide, shows how the site slopes downhill from south to north and how the development would respond to that topography. It's probably just worth dwelling on that section at the top of this slide, members, just to note how this applicant is proposing to step the 3-unit terrace and the pairs of semi-detached properties. So there will be steps within those blocks, which has been proposed to help deal with the topography. Other developers, in some cases, propose continuous roof lines and continuous ground floor floor plates, but this applicant has proposed to step those units, which would not only deal with the topography but also help reflect the way development has traditionally dealt with sloping sites within the home valley. Natural stone would have been preferable at this site. However, it is recommended that a high quality artificial stone can be accepted here. Neighbour amenity concerns have been addressed through the applicant locating the estate road adjacent to the site's eastern boundary by spacing new dwellings away from existing dwellings and through the inclusion of soft landscaping. Unacceptable impacts relating to loss of privacy, outlook and natural light would not occur. Ecological impacts are considered acceptable and given the site's current biodiversity value and the recommended Section 106 obligation that would secure a biodiversity net gain. Members will have seen in yesterday's committee report update that a revised biodiversity metric calculation is expected from the applicant and that this may change the contribution to be secured, although it's expected to be a minor increase in the sum that would be secured in relation to biodiversity net gain. And it's recommended that authority to resolve this matter be delegated to officers. Regarding other Section 106 obligations, all requirements would be met except in relation to affordable housing. In compliance with planning policy, this development would normally be required to provide 4 affordable units in the form of 2 affordable or social rent units, 1 first home and 1 other intermediate dwelling. However, following a review of the development's financial viability, it was accepted that this full complement could not be provided as part of this development. The applicant therefore now proposes 2 2-bed units and 1 3-bed unit, all as first homes. So in total, 3 affordable units are proposed instead of the required 4, and the 3 proposed units would all be first homes, which members is a form of intermediate tenure instead of a mix of tenures. The proposed unit size mixes of the development's private and affordable elements are considered acceptable. 158 representations, all objections to the proposals, have been received in relation to this application across 2 consultations, as have representations from Ward Councillor Brooke, Councillor Crook and Councillor Ryler, and also former Councillor Firth. Significant amendments have been made during the life of the current application to ensure relevant planning concerns have been addressed. The proposed development relates to a site allocated for housing and will contribute to housing delivery in the borough, which is a key consideration, not least given the tilted balance now applicable in light of the borough's current housing supply situation. Approval of full planning permission is recommended, subject to conditions and the completion of a Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Victor. Okay, so we'll move to representations from the public. So as I said before, you've got 3 minutes to make representations and I will have to stop you after 3 minutes. Pardon?
Just before I start, could I have submitted...
I haven't asked anyone to start yet, so just wait a second. I was just explaining that you've got 3 minutes to speak. You've got 3 minutes to speak. It'll be on the timer, and after the 3 minutes, I will have to stop you. So try to make your points within the 3 minutes. So I'll bring you in now. Is it Ian? Okay. So you've now got 3 minutes. Please give us your representation.
Sorry, I have submitted some photographs to yourself and the councillors prior to the meeting. Right, first could I say that both the builder and our council leaders would like you to approve this application, one for profit and the other for political reasons. Road safety appears to have been purposely downplayed in this application to try and ensure its approval. For example, the final approval note from Highways only devotes 1 page to road safety, whilst the other 11 pages are used to discuss safe cycle storage, construction of a footpath, and refuse vehicle turning circles. Now, the site's access road, Bankfield Drive, was built in the 1970s when road design wasn't very strict. My photographs show how this road, with a 1 in 5 gradient and a blind corner, joins Dobtop Road at the dangerous Smithy Lane junction. There are currently 9 houses on Bankfield Drive, plus 2 or 3 on Lathe Avenue, which use this street. Building a further 21 houses would triple the number of vehicles joining Smithy Lane from Bankfield Drive, and thus triple the chance of a pedestrian being injured by a car skidding across this junction. Sensibly, an application to build on this field was rejected by Kirklees in 1992 on road safety grounds. The builder's subsequent appeal in 1993 was also rejected outright on road safety grounds. Nothing has changed since 1992, apart from a massive increase in road traffic. I should also point out that this field was only included in the 2019 Kirklees development plan, with the proviso that it passed a road transport safety assessment. The first transport assessment in 2023, paid for by the builder, blatantly said that there was no evidence of accidents at the bottom of Bankfield Drive, since there were no skid marks on the road and no evidence of wall damage. Homebridge residents objected strongly to this and other false statements for obvious reasons. As you'll see on the diagram that I supplied you, it is now proposed to build a safety curb along this wall. This would not protect pedestrians from being crushed against the wall, but would force them to walk further into the road. A couple of years ago, a large Mercedes car skidded down Bankfield Drive after a very light snowfall, and it demolished the dry stone wall opposite. Shortly afterwards, I photographed school children walking past this point and have supplied you with a photograph for your attention. This crash could have resulted in the death of at least one child if it had happened a little bit later. The National Planning Framework states that development should be refused on highways grounds if there will be an unacceptable impact on highway safety. Since tripling the chance of an accident is unacceptable, please reject this application.
Thank you. The next person to speak is Steve Elvidge. Steve, you've got 3 minutes too.
Okay. Despite refusal on highway safety grounds in the past, we are told that due to changes in policy, this site is now appropriate for development. Policy changes have nothing whatsoever to do with the fact that a junction unsafe to users' access for further development in 1992 is even more unsafe today. It's part of a rural school route for children walking to and from Hinchcliffe Mill Junior and Infant School, and a preschool and an out-of-school club, and by children attending Home First High. There are a number of incidents at this junction every year. Vehicles lose control on Bankfield Drive and Lathbank Drive and plough into the wall on the other side. The repairs to this wall by the council are plain to see and must be on record. There have been many vehicle collisions due to the poor sight lines. These go unrecorded as police have not been called. There have actually been 2 collisions in the past 4 weeks, both in good weather, and one of them involving 2 council vehicles. This morning you may have noticed a relatively new lamppost towards the bottom of Bankfield Drive. This was the result of a tradesman's vehicle demolishing the previous one. Bankfield and Lathbank are never gritted. Only 2 weeks ago a number of vehicles were descending Bankfield Drive sideways. On the existing estate there are an average of 2.2 vehicles per household. 21 new homes could result in 46 extra cars and up to 92 commuting trips per day. This is not insignificant. Despite the vast majority of the 158 objections citing pedestrian safety, the proposed containment curve mentioned would actually increase the chance of children and other pedestrians being hit by forcing them to walk even further into the road. It's playing Russian roulette with people's lives and increasing the number of bullets. It's madness. Other proposed mitigation measures are largely superficial, as the layout of the junction and lack of level standing cannot be changed. Also, high friction road surfacing makes no difference in icy conditions. In conclusion, all we're asking for here is a common sense approach. How can highways and planning change their stance on this proven to be dangerous junction? It's simply irresponsible. House building is blatantly being prioritised over general road and especially pedestrian safety, which cannot be right. With all the evidence presented, if you approve this application, would you feel comfortable should a fatal accident occur at this junction in the future? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. The next speaker is Rick Cocker. You'll have 3 minutes too. Off you go.
Thank you. This development builds on a sloping field whose northern boundary consists of a dry stone wall falling to Dobtop Road, thence to Smithy Lane, some 13 metres below. Destabilising the field and the boundary wall will have a catastrophic effect. It should be noted that during this morning's site meeting, committee members failed to inspect this boundary wall, neither from within the field nor below and along Dobtop Road, where it actually dribbles out water. The water is frequently seen leaking through the boundary wall along Dobtop Road. Dobtop's southern wall has experienced a wall collapse into the garden of a house on Bank Lane, and water ingress has caused damage to a property along Smithy Lane, requiring remedial action by the occupier. The field's southern catchment area continues upwards for over 1,000 metres through Crow Hill, Moss Edge, and almost reaching Crossley's plantation. Locals recall the field frequently waterlogged, with ducks filmed on the pool within. As the climate warms, greater amounts of water will descend towards and through the field, increasing the pressure on the wall along Dobtop Road. Should this collapse, damage to lives and property would be disastrous. Kirklees leads local flood authorities' proposal of a management company to oversee development may emerge to be a costly undertaking. Who pays? The LLFA specifically requested a condition to take into account the effects of 1 in 100-year storm events. Current statistics suggest this is fallacious. The Met Office concluded that events like those experienced between October 23 and March 24, once regarded as 1 in 50-year events, are now predicted every 5 years. As warming and rainfall intensifies, this falls to every 3 years. Following Storm Bert, the BBC announced 1 in 100-year storm events have been revised to 1 in 10 years. As valley dwellers, we should be cognizant of events in Spain, Wales, and locally Burnley Road. The latter still causing problems for both the house owner and the council. If one inappropriately sited building can create so much disruption, cost, and concern, what of 21 ill-sited properties? The need for more housing, although a worthy aim, must not be allowed to take precedence of the safety of valley residents. I implore this committee to make the wise decision, leave the field undisturbed, and reject this application. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next speaker we have is Angela Mitchell. Angela, you're the same time.
The plans submitted do not meet the requirements of Policy LP24. 21 houses is an over-intensification of this small site, and the density and style of the proposed properties are completely out of character with the existing surrounding houses, which are detached and have an open and spacious aspect. Developments should ensure that the needs of a range of different users are met, including disabled and older people. Yet there is no provision in these plans for any single-storey properties. However, the plans do include a row of 3 terraces, of which there are none on the existing estate. 17 of the properties do not include garages, so there'll be no space for storage of pushchairs, play and sport equipment, gardening tools, etc. No doubt garages or garden sheds will soon be erected on the drives, reducing the 2 car parking spaces to 1 or even none. Increasing the site density places additional pressure on infrastructure, adds to the risk of collapse of existing walls, and increases traffic on the already overcrowded rural roads. With reference to LP24 11.4, due to the site's location, the topography and views and vistas should have been given particular consideration. Once this site is developed, the views will be lost forever. The development will be an intrusion on the landscape and will not blend in with the green belt it abuts. Recently, a planning application for an extension to a neighbouring property was refused by Kirklees, as it would have a harmful impact upon the character and appearance of the wider street, eroding the existing open and spacious feel of the site within the street scene, contravening Policy LP24. Why then is it acceptable to build this new estate of 21 properties? With reference to the Kirklees House Builders Design Guide, SPD 7.19, separation distance guidelines have not been met, causing loss of light, overlooking, overshadowing and loss of privacy. The gable end of Plot 1 is only 9 metres from the living room window of 2 Lathe Avenue, whereas the guide states that the minimum separation distance is 12 metres for windows of habitable rooms. Why haven't the recommended separation distances been enforced? With reference to the Home Valley Neighbourhood Plan Policy 2, the development does not respect the scale, mass, height and form of existing buildings in the locality and the site setting. It will have a detrimental impact on the surroundings and neighbouring properties. It is proposed that the houses are built with artificial stone, which is out of keeping with the site location and will not age with time. With reference to the Home Valley Neighbourhood Plan Policy 12, the developers are proposing gas boilers rather than heat pumps. All new buildings should incorporate technologies which generate or source energy from renewable low-carbon sources. In 1993, when a previous planning application on this site was rejected, Kirklees Planning stated that the proposed development would significantly detract from the character and scale of Home Bridge and destroy the visual amenity. This still applies today. This application should be refused as these plans contravene Kirklees' own policies.
Thank you. And now we've got Sally Emmett. We'll also have three minutes.
Thank you. The astounding 158 objections, comments and opinions of the local people, the residents of Bankfield Drive and the surrounding area have been continually ignored and overruled by Kirklees Planning Department and the applicant. The consultations have merely played lip service to the process. Many reports with inaccuracies and omissions have been produced to justify building, and statistics produced based on national averages, but the local people know that cramming 21 houses onto this small exposed elevated site does not make sense. The planner's report to this committee states the council's inability to demonstrate a 5-year supply of housing land weighs in favour of housing development, and the 21 dwellings proposed would contribute towards meeting housing delivery targets of the local plan. So Kirklees is willing to meet housing delivery targets at the expense of safety on the roads, danger to pedestrians, risk of flooding, wall collapse, sewerage leaks, over-intensification, loss of visual amenity and biodiversity. Locals know that 21 houses are over-intensification of this rural elevated site, which lies in a steep valley 200 metres above sea level, exposed to extreme winds from Home Moss. We know this development would cause severe loss of visual amenity from a site which currently has open views to the Peace District from the public footpath. We know that the site has springs. Given this site's location at the bottom of a steep valley, we question the adequacy of the proposed drainage and if it will cope with future climate change. We know that increased demand on the ancient sewerage system will only increase the incidence of already regular sewage leaks onto Bank Lane below, which then leaches into the River Home. We know the stability of the supporting 10-foot wall at the northern boundary of the site is questionable and has been subject to numerous repairs in the past. A wall along from this has already collapsed and there is subsidence on Dobtop Road. Should the site boundary wall collapse, the flooding and damage to the houses below on Smithy Lane would be catastrophic. We know that future residents would be dependent on cars and have to use the already over-congested valley roads. Public transport here is poor. We know the approach junctions, poor sight lines and exceptionally steep roads leading to the site are already dangerous and that ice and snow is more frequent here. Kirklees admit the anti-skid surface would have limited impact. We know that a few more safety signs will not change how vulnerable pedestrians are as they have to walk past parked cars and along roads with no pavements. The proposed high containment curb will only narrow the usable road and if climbed on by children there would be a risk of falling down the 40-foot drop over the existing wall. We know that vehicles lose control on Bankfield Drive and Lane Bank Drive and there have been collisions. Please listen to the common sense and safety concerns of local residents and turn down this application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We don't believe Councillor Brooke is here, so he's not, so we'll move on from that. We've got the final person to speak is Candy Day, who's going to speak on behalf of the applicant. So similarly, you've got 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name's Candy Day. I'm the technical manager at Orion Homes. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak in support of this application. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the planning team involved in overcoming lots of issues to make this allocated site one that is supported by the planner and all relevant consultees. I would also like to say on behalf of Orion Homes, we believe that we've found a fantastic site here and we're looking forward to delivering 21 homes, 3 of which are affordable. The officer's report before you is comprehensive and clearly addresses all the relevant planning matters. We welcome the positive recommendation from the planner and hope that the members of the planning committee will support the professional officer advice. I'd just like to pick up on a couple of points that were mentioned earlier. In terms of the highways, we've been through a huge amount of discussion with the council's highways department team, and we're putting in lots of off-site remediation, such as the friction surfacing, the signage, the curbs that were spoken about earlier, and this is all to the satisfaction of Kirklees Highways Department. In terms of the surface water draining onto Dobtop Road through the retaining wall, the site will, once developed, will be positively drained, so any surface water will go into a tank that's then drained positively into the system rather than draining through the retaining wall as it currently does. Thank you for listening. I'd be happy to respond to any further comments. Thanks.
Okay. So thanks for all those representations. I'll come to members in a second. Just wanted to say, just in response to some of the comments, our job as a planning committee here is not a political role. It's to make determination on the application based on planning policy, our local policies, and the national legislation. So that's what we're intending to do today. All right. Any members open to you before? And we'll also try to clarify some of the points that people made in their comments as we go along. Members, does anybody want to comment? Okay, Councillor Armour.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. We've got quite a lot of information about road safety. We've heard some. We've also got quite a lot in the document pack. And I'm very concerned about it. It's a difficult site. But the surrounding road network is also difficult. We have rural roads, they tend to be steep, they tend to have quite a number of sharp bends. They're not intrinsically safe. If you add to that, as councillors we're all aware that highways struggle with winter maintenance. We know this. We know that they're saying they can't afford to fill grit bins on a regular basis. So I think come winter, these roads are going to be like skating rinks. We know they will not be gritted to any great extent. We know that grit will not be provided to any great extent unless ward councillors can find extra money out of their budgets. The Highways Authority is not capable of performing winter maintenance to the degree that would be necessary were this application to go ahead. There are also debates or concerns raised about potential overdevelopment. I don't think it is. I think the density is about right. And it is a matter for concern that we don't get enough affordable units. We're 25% down. But my overriding concern is road safety and in particular lack of winter maintenance. I think they're going to be very dangerous roads in winter, and we have a lot of winter around here. Thank you.
Councillor Sokol.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I've been on site visit this morning as well. Chair, Home Valley town and villages, they are very famous for steep hill and narrow roads. Yeah? That doesn't mean we can't build any more houses in there. Future generation, they need some houses. Yeah? If we don't build it, where they will go? This site is clearly allocated in our local plan for 21 houses. Yeah? There are 3 affordable houses. But again, the mixed or houses are which meet all the needs of the community. Small houses and big houses, 4 and 5 bedrooms. Yeah? It's difficult to go against officer recommendation to approve this application. If this application go to the appeal, we will lose the appeal. Some residents have raised concern about roads are not gritted. I don't think the gritting is the matter for planning material. Yeah, we should put it one side. Can I ask the officer, is there plan to improve the junction at Top Road and Bankfield Road?
So just in terms of the highways, if you can answer just that question, but also just building on what the objectives were saying, it would just be good to just clarify the position of the previous application and whether our view has changed, whether it's to do with different policies or whether it's to do with the mitigations that are taking place. Just to help clarify that would be good.
Thank you. Through you, I would just chip in just to ask if it's okay to share this slide. Sorry, I didn't show this earlier on, Chair, but this is the slide that illustrates the applicant's proposed improvements to the five-way junction, and I'll hand over to Chris Dowes of Highways Development Management.
Through you, Chair, thanks. I'm not familiar with the 1993 application. What was proposed at that time, whether any mitigation was proposed or not, I don't know, I'm sorry. As far as policy has changed and guidance has changed, we're talking over 30 years in that point, and I think the bar at which something would be unacceptable is now higher, because something has to be, if it's going to be prevented on highway safety grounds, it has to be unacceptable impact on highway safety, or a residential cumulative impact on the road network would need to be severe. Whereas before that wasn't the case. That is now the bar that we judge applications by. And in this instance, having assessed it and assessed all this, traffic generated accidents, the road network, potential mitigations, the view we've reached that there is not a severe impact on the highway network. I mean, I can go through those junction improvements that have been put on the. Yeah, I mean, I think as far as mitigation goes, I mean, we all visited the site this morning. The roads are steep. We can't get away from the fact they are steep. The network around there is constrained. It's a network that's evolved over centuries, probably as cart tracks that have become roads. The improvements that are being proposed out at the bottom of Bankfield Drive with Top Road, and where those junctions come together, they're sort of twofold. One, there is the surfacing, there's the resurfacing of that area with anti-skid surfacing, which will be effective in wet and dry conditions. Won't I accept? If the road is icy, that won't have an effect on it. And as part of that, there's a relining and sort of making the junction more compact, moving the centre line over to improve visibility, improve the junction with Top Road and how that all works to improve visibility at that point. Nobody shies away from the fact, yes, there has been overshoot incidents at that junction. There is evidence in the dry stone wall that vehicles have hit it. We're aware it's hit it. It has been repaired in the past by the council. To avoid the vehicles striking the wall and potentially going through that wall, that is the idea of this containment curb arrangement that's been proposed. That should, if there is an overshoot incident, that should capture the vehicle, should prevent it going through the wall and down the thing. It will also assist with drainage, because it will collect drainage directed to the gullies, which will take water away from that area. Currently, some of that will seep through the dry stone wall, which again weakens the wall itself. Looking at accident records, there has been overshoot incidents, but they haven't been all damage. They've been damage only. There haven't been any. We obviously review accident records where there's been injury, reported accidents where there've been injury accidents. There hasn't been any in the last 5 years. And I think we went back as far as 20 years and there hadn't been one recorded pedestrian injury at that junction. And I accept it is a walking route for schools, and we've seen the photographs submitted by objectors. But there hasn't been a recorded accident of a pedestrian at that junction. And I think another thing that people need to be aware, which obviously there's been a lot of work gone on here, we've sort of got as much mitigation as we feel is possible within the constraints of that network. No one's saying that network is perfect and it's constrained, but we feel the best mitigation we can within the constraints of that. Counts done at that junction in the peak periods show that, and we're talking about all movements, this is vehicles going along Smithy Lane, Top Road and down Bankfield. There were 59 movements in the peak hour. That is low. And we went on the bus this morning. How many cars did we pass on Top Road and Smithy? Very, very few. You see, even in the peak period, there's less than 1 a minute, or about 1 a minute. We're adding another 16 to that in the peak hour. That is not a severe impact.
Okay, thank you for that. Did you want to come back, Councillor?
Yeah. Thank you. Make it clear that. Great. I'm happy to move the recommendation to approve application, but I would like to ask officer, one is it possible to ask the developer to use natural stone, because most of the property around there are natural stone. Second condition I would like to have, because some resident has said the construction work should be between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. Yeah? So not to disturb any residents or school children going there. Can we do that, 2 conditions?
Okay, do you want to, Victor, can you come back on those 2 points?
Through you, Chair. I understand there was conversations between the applicant and the case officer regarding the use of natural stone, which would have been the preference for a site like this, but there's a cost implication associated with using natural stone at a site like this, and as mentioned earlier on, viability is an issue at this site. The scheme will be delivering slightly less than the full complement of Section 106 obligations. Use of natural stone will be an additional cost that I understand could not be afforded without something else having to go in the Section 106 package. Also, in terms of the site's context, you probably noticed, Chair, that and Chair remembers that the existing residential development immediately adjacent to the site does use a fairly varied palette of materials, including brick, and in that context, we didn't feel that this was the site that was most. We didn't feel that natural stone was essential at this site for the development to be acceptable in planning terms. Then in terms of the hours of works, yes, the resident has suggested that they be restricted to 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. That is those are slightly shorter hours than the hours that environmental health normally recommend. They usually recommend 7:30 till, I believe it's 6 o'clock in the early evening. We can put this suggestion to the applicant, but it would be contrary to what we'd normally allow at a site like this, including a site that is already next to existing residential development. What we could perhaps suggest, if those 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. hours can't be adhered to by the developer, is that a restriction on at least noisy works and vehicle movements, HGV movements, be restricted to avoid things like the walking to school and walking home hours, which is something we do commonly do. We do commonly secure that through the the discharge of condition applications relating to the construction and environmental management plan.
Did you want to comment? Okay. We'll come back to those in a second. Councillor Lawson, did you want to come in, Andrew?
Thank you, Chair. Having actually been up on the site visit today, it wouldn't be a road that I would feel confident going up and down, especially in bad weather. but it is notable now that there will be some traffic calming measures to stop any potential accidents there. I'm also pleased to find that there hasn't actually been any pedestrian accidents as well. And again, is looking at sort of when goods would be delivered to the site. I really would suggest is outside of sort of, maybe if there are school children in the area, outside of sort of the going to school, the coming back from school, and also that would coincide with people leaving the site, because I can imagine it would be quite tight at times with getting the delivery things from there. Going back to sort of the winter maintenance, unfortunately that is a problem throughout the whole of Kirklees, and one of the things that they have put in place is the actual snow warden scheme, which somewhere like that would actually be ideal, and I would hope that the ward councillors would encourage residents to actually inquire about that, and thank you.
Councillor Pinnock.
Yes, this is an allocated site. So the presumption, all other things being equal, is that we approve applications. And members of the committee have to be clear that sufficient work has been done to deal with all the issues that are brought up during the period at which the application is advertised to the public. And one can see from the committee report the volume of objections that have been received. It's one of the largest collection of resident representations that I've ever seen. Now, whether there is a correlation between this and whether something should happen is a moot point. But clearly there is a degree of concern about the development of a site of this kind. Right, we have a site in the Holme Valley, a lot of whose roads, as has already been mentioned, are either narrow, not straight, undulating, any of the above, frankly, and difficult to traverse, and particularly in winter weather when there may be snow and ice around. Now, as Councillor Lawson has mentioned, I think the snow warden scheme can help with that sort of thing, given that the council is not necessarily able to either grit or provide grit for all the roads that might be necessary. And it does strike me that given the slope on the access road to this site, there should be access to grit, quite definitely. Now, whether if there isn't a grit box there, whether we can get one, there is one there, right? Okay, I didn't see it, but thank you. That's fair enough. That therefore means that something can be done in times of snow and ice. As Councillor Rama has suggested, the density is probably about right, given the size of the site. I think we forget at our peril, really, trying to make things less dense. There is a sort of principle of making the best use of the land that's available and not leaving any bits that become undevelopable. And I'm pleased to see that the road into this site does actually potentially go straight through it to make it possible to use the land on the other side, which may be required later in the plan period. I suppose what I'm getting round to saying is that I think that there are enough safeguards that members of the committee have had described to them in order to make this development acceptable. All right, it's probably not on a site that we might have chosen number one on our list, simply because of the very steep access road. But it is where it is. The council is under pressure, not necessarily from any of its own making, because it has a lack of housing supply, and there is a pressure to grant applications. So if this has already been proposed, I'm happy to second it.
Yeah, okay, and I just wanted to add comment on this to say that it is a steep incline at the access, and the problems that have been talked about today are problems that exist today with the current use. And as our highways officers explained, the property numbers we're talking about they increase the intensity, but not to a significant degree. What we're actually potentially doing here is, regardless of how many, if there wasn't any houses built, we're going to be improving the safety at this junction for existing users as well. So people who live there, and I think that's important to remember, because presumably without this application, those additional safety measures won't be provided, or funding from somewhere else would need to be found for that. Just on a couple of points that were made in the application. So one was just raised about the retaining wall and the drainage, and I think, if I'm right, Victor, that's kind of conditioned in terms of the of what's required there to ensure that meets the requirements the residents were talking about in terms of safety. And then just one other thing, there was a discussion just about the separation distances, saying that some of the separation distance didn't, or I think it was on the Stairs Avenue, Stairs Lane. Can you just clarify on that, just so I'm 100% clear on that?
Yeah, through to you, Chair. The retaining wall on the north edge of the site would need to be partly dismantled and rebuilt to enable the drainage connections to be made down to Dobtop Road. And yeah, conditions are recommended relating to the existing condition of that wall and the reconstruction of that wall, which would need to be carried out to modern day standards. Sorry, Chair, could you remind me what the other point was?
It was just about the separation distance.
Separation distances, sorry, yes. Yeah, the case officer's gone through the site layout plan and has set out in the committee report that the advisory distances set out in the council's house builders SPD would be adhered to, and so the recommendation is that there wouldn't be problems in relation to overlooking, loss of outlook and overshadowing of those neighbouring properties. So just to go back to, because I know Councillor Sokol, you moved the recommendation, but you suggested some conditions. So can we just go back on those? Because I think on the natural stone point, my feeling based on the officer's response was that probably isn't the priority for the development, because it's going to have an impact. It probably opens up the discussion about affordable housing again, and actually it is mixed in terms of the stone brick that's used in that area. So would you be comfortable in us not attaching that condition? Okay. And on the times of use, I mean, my thinking based on the discussion was that probably needs not necessarily the times, the specific times of operation, but perhaps that as part of the construction management plan, that needs to be considered in terms of access times, school times, etc. So I think that my feeling is that would be covered as part of the existing conditions proposed. Is that, Victor? I can come in, Chair, through you. I've just double checked what environmental health usually recommend. Their hours that they recommend noisy works be controlled to are 7:30 to 6:30, Mondays to Fridays, and 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturdays, with no noisy activities on Sundays and public holidays. And what we usually do is impose a condition requiring a construction environmental management plan to be submitted. That plan, when it is submitted to the council, is expected to comply with those hours to do with noisy works. But in addition, the plan is usually required to set out additional controls on movements of HGVs during the construction period, and we pay particular attention to getting those hours right where we know that there are school children moving to and from local schools in the vicinity of the site. And so it's a regular thing that we do, that we make sure happens that we make sure is secured in the construction environmental management plans.
You're happy with that, Councillor Sokol? That'll be covered in that condition, okay? So on that basis, Sheila, I think we've got a proposal from Councillor Sokol and seconded from Councillor Pinnock that we approve on agree with the officer recommendation. So we'll move to a vote on that.
So it's the officer recommendation that approval be delegated, subject to the conditions, completing the list of conditions, including those in the report, and the Section 106 agreement. There was just a slight amendment in terms of the biodiversity contribution to delegate authority to amend the amount further to the receipt of an amended biodiversity metric calculation. Councillor Sokol?
For.
Councillor Lawson?
For.
Councillor Pinnock?
For.
Councillor Armour?
I'm against.
Councillor Homewood?
For.
That's carried, Chair, 4 votes to 1.
Thank you. So we've approved that application. Would members like a quick 5-minute break before the next? Yeah. Right, welcome back to the meeting. So next item is item 13, which is the former Dorker Works, Millsbridge. Nick, hand up to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. This application seeks full planning permission for the erection of 35 dwellings. These are proposed to be 100% affordable rent units. The application is brought to committee as part of the recommendation for approval, a full policy compliant 106 package would not be secured following a viability exercise. The site is unallocated within the local plan, but is brownfield land having historically hosted a commercial property. It has also had historic planning permissions for residential development approved, although these have since expired. Of note, the site is immediately adjacent to Mildred's Brent Centre, just to the west of the site, and is also within the Millsbridge Conservation Area, and is adjacent to the Grade 2-star listed Armitage House, which can be seen in blue in the bottom right-hand corner of that photo. Since the demolition of the previous building, the site has been boarded off and as shown by these images. Access would be from Dowker Street to the east of the site, with the circle on the left image showing the approximate location of the proposed site entrance. This slide shows the proposed layout and landscaping arrangements. It is considered by officers to be a suitable response to the shape of the site, the local built environment, as well as the site's constraints, including a culvert within the western portion of the site, which can be seen with the hazy blue line. The layout and design of the dwelling has also been carefully considered to not harm the significance of the nearby heritage assets, and officers consider the design to be high quality that would fit into the local environment, including the historic environment. This slide shows a street scene from George Street and Dowker Street. The dwellings have been designed to reflect those typical within the area. And then this slide shows some additional typical elevations. Elevations facing out of the site are proposed to be natural stone, to be secured via condition, and units into the site are proposed to be artificial. The report before members outlines officers' full assessment of the application. In summary, the proposal seeks to redevelop vacant brownfield land immediately adjacent to a local centre. The proposed density and mixture of houses is appropriate, and, as previously noted, the design is considered high quality and would not harm the historic environment. The proposal would not prejudice the amenity of nearby residents, while also securing a high standard of amenity for future occupiers. The site is partially within Flood Zone 2, however the applicant has undertaken a sequential test and demonstrated that no sequentially preferable sites are available for the proposed development, with neither the lead local flood authority or environment agency objecting to the proposal. Highways offer no objection to the proposal, subject to the conditions and contribution as detailed in the update, and highway officers are available should you have any further questions. All of the material planning considerations have been considered addressed within the report. Regarding the contributions, the application has been through a viability assessment. This concluded that to deliver the 100% affordable scheme, the policy-compliant off-site public open space contribution could not be provided. Officers accept this conclusion, and while the public open space contribution is not recommended to be secured, officers welcome the delivery of 100% affordable units. A contribution of £10,000 to promote a local traffic regulation order has, however, been agreed as set out within the update. 8 representations have been received in response to the proposal, including 5 in support. These are considered and addressed within the report. Overall, the site offers a unique opportunity for high-quality, affordable housing development within a suitable residential area of Kirklees. Therefore, officers recommend approval, subject to securing conditions and the 106 agreement per the amended recommendation within the update. Nothing further, Chair.
Thanks, Nick. So we've got no speakers on this one, so members, Councillor Armour.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I fully approve of brownfield sites being brought forward. I think it's important. This is derelict land at the moment. It reduces pressure on greenfield sites. It's a good reuse of land. And I think it's important to note that these are affordable homes, which the Millsbridge area does need affordable homes. So I'm prepared to propose that we accept the officer recommendations.
Thanks, Councillor Ahmed. Councillor Socko?
Yeah, Chair, I agree with Councillor Bill Ahmed. Yeah, this is a brownfield site. We always ask first brownfield, then other. Yeah, 100% affordable houses, but we always promoting the scheme. So I think the viability of the put forward by developer have been assessed by the independent viability assessor, which I agree with that. I think I'm happy to second the move by Bill Ahmed. Yeah.
So Councillor Pinnock first.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I am generally in support of this, but I would like to query one thing. This is a site I know fairly well, and I know that it is actually fairly near a river. And I notice in paragraph 1068 that it talks about crate storage, and I'm not sure that I have come across that. I'm trying to guess what it might be, but because I am concerned that these houses are resilient against any flood events that might occur. So if you could, please.
Yep. Through you, Chair. Crate storage is a type of attenuation. What we typically in historical data is what's known as a Carlo tank. It's a brand like Hoover, but effectively it's a big concrete box where the water fills up and then slowly discharges out. Crate storage is a more modern design where it's like milk crates, it's like a honeycomb. Does the same job, it's just more modern. It's an attenuation tank, it's just a different type of attenuation tank. In regards to flood resilience, these are within flood zone 2. If they were within flood zone 3, we'd do something called an exception test, where they'd be required to give that in, they'd have to give specific details on flood mitigation measures and security along those lines. As flood zone 2, it's in what we call the 1 in 1,000 year event zone, so they don't need to provide that. So it's not something that has been picked up and detailed within the application explicitly.
Through you, Chair. Thank you very much. Because I'm always concerned when you see things on the news that where floods have occurred in places where not that they've never had floods before, but they're fairly rare. And I'm not suggesting for one moment that the Colne Valley is subject to this as a problem. But I would not like us approving something for which enough resilience wasn't built into the development, and I think I've had assurance from Nick that is the case. Thanks, Chair.
Yep, Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Chair. As others have actually said, this is a brownfield site. It's also, looking at the photographs, having been down there, a bit of an eyesore. Another positive for me is the fact that it will be 100% affordable housing, and I would be happy to support that. And also thank you to Councillor Pinnock for asking the questions regarding the flood risk.
Pleasure.
Well, that's good. Well, it's first time for everything. So we've had it moved and seconded, the officer's recommendation, so we'll go to the vote.
So you're voting to delegate authority to approve the application to the Head of Planning and Development to complete the conditions, including those in the report, including the additional highway conditions and the addition to the section 106 set out in the update. Councillor Sokol? Councillor Lawson? 4. Councillor Pinnock?
4.
Councillor Armour?
4.
Councillor Homewood?
4.
It's agreed unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to the last application, item 14. This is the quarry at Thewlis Lane, Crossland Hill. So Fazana, pass over to you. Let you get your slides sorted out.
Thank you, Chair. The application is brought to committee as the proposals represent a significant departure from the local plan. 3 representations are received as a result of the initial publicity, the concerns of which are set out under paragraph 7.3 of the committee report. A further round of publicity has been carried out in November to publicise the proposals as a departure, and as the applicant on the 30th of October requested a further extension of time to that initially submitted. The application relates to an operational quarry which forms part of a larger complex of quarries infrastructure associated to Johnson's Wellfield Quarries. The works are being operated under a planning permission granted in January 2014, with relevant phasing and restoration approved under a subsequent discharge of condition application granted in January 2015. This required the site to be backfilled to an engineered standard to leave a stable level development plateau for potential future residential development. The proposals are now seeking to vary a number of conditions to enable a low-level restoration scheme as opposed to an engineered backfill of the former quarry area, and to remove a number of conditions which the applicant considers are no longer relevant to the site and those that refer to the site to be restored for agricultural use and nature conservation area. The proposals also seek to extend the time in which to complete mineral extraction and restoration of the site for a further 2 years to December 2027. The application red line consists of 2 areas: the smaller area west of Thewlis Lane, which is used for stone processing and storage for this site and also in association with the wider business operations. This area overlaps and forms part of another application and Section 106 agreement as referred to in the committee report. The larger area east of Thewlis Lane is the operational quarry and also forms part of a larger housing allocation as identified on this plan by the orange shaded area. Public rights of way run parallel to the southern boundary of the larger area. This aerial photo gives an overview of the site in its context, which shows the nearest residential properties to the north, east and south. The darker areas on the periphery of the quarry, including a strip of land along Thewlis Lane, are soil mounds formed from stripped soils from within the site. On this view, you can also see the previously approved diverted temporary bridleway here. These are photos taken earlier this year which give an indication of the levels within the quarry void. The top 2 photos on this slide show the grass verge, stone wall and area between the soil mounds along Thewlis Lane on the side of the quarry void, where the current proposals are to include hedgerow planting. The photo below is taken along the southern boundary and shows in part the temporary approved bridleway referred to previously. This slide shows the previously approved engineered backfilling phasing. The backfilling approved would have required shale and sandstone to be compacted in layers and to bring the site back to its original levels. This plan shows the previously approved soft landscaping details. As can be seen, a large extent of the site here was approved to be restored to agricultural land, with areas of heathland along the road frontage and a woodland area to the north. This is the submitted plan showing the proposed low-level restoration details. The applicant is seeking to continue using a smaller area in association with the operations of the wider business and regrade the larger area with materials on site, following which the soil mounds to the north, east and south will be respread back into the site and grass seeded. The proposals will include additional planting in the form of hedgerow along the road frontage to offset for the loss of the previously approved soft landscaping features. The sections taken through the site are detailed on the next slide, showing the existing and proposed levels. So you have the first section going in the east to west direction and the sections 2 and 3 from north to south. The top section here, number 1, taken from the east to west through the site, indicates the retention of the quarry face adjacent to Thewlis Lane here, and a sheer drop The orange line indicates the existing levels, with the green line showing the proposed levels after regrading works. Again, sections 2 and 3 show both the existing and proposed levels taken in the north and south directions. From these details, it is observed that whilst the edges of the quarry will be regraded to create sloping sides, the site will be left with a depression. The applicant's reasons for the proposed low-level restoration scheme is that the previously approved engineered backfill has become unviable. To substantiate this, the applicant submitted a pre-application inquiry in 2022, which was accompanied with a viability assessment. This considered the viability of two options, these being redeveloping the site for around 500 dwellings in line with the current site allocation, including the approved restoration plan engineered backfill for the quarry hole, and option 2, a low-level restoration of the quarry hole to provide public open space with approximately 327 units on the remainder of the site. The viability assessment was independently verified by an appropriate viability assessor on behalf of the council, who concluded that neither option was viable, full details of which are set out in paragraphs 5.1 to 5.8 of the committee report. The current proposals are submitted on the back of the outcome of the pre-application inquiry and relates to a low-level restoration scheme. In considering the planning balance and principle of the low-level restoration scheme, taking into account the unviable position regarding the approved engineered backfill, together with the applicant's grounds set out in paragraph 10.12 of the report, other factors the applicant has referred to is that the shale previously approved to be used in the engineered backfill has been sterilised, a significant fault experienced at Thewlis Lane during stone extraction, which had a knock-on effect on the approved phasing and timescales. Added to this, the rise in inflation in the construction sector. It is considered that all these factors weigh in favour in the planning balance of the low-level restoration scheme put forward. This is also on the basis that it has been demonstrated that the proposed low-level restoration scheme would not prevent development of the remainder of the housing allocation, and a significant number, up to 327 dwellings, could still be delivered. Turning to the local amenity issues, there are a number of conditions on the previous permission which require works to be carried out in compliance with the details previously agreed in relation to noise, dust and air quality matters. These again will be imposed to protect the amenities of nearby sensitive receptors and to accord with the local plan policies LP 36 and LP 52. With respect to highway prowl matters, subject to the imposition of all relevant highway conditions from the previous permissions, work can be carried out without causing material highway safety impacts to users of the highway network. With respect to the removal and variations of conditions, the committee report sets out whether it's appropriate to remove or reword these conditions. Finally, the applicant proposes to omit the small overlapped area from the restoration aftercare obligations as set out in the legal agreement for the 2003-91619 permission to continue using this area for stone processing and storage purposes in association with the wider operations of the business. Consequently, this will require a deed of variation to the original Section 106, as the proposals will affect the future use of this area under the current application. As such, the recommendation is to delegate the application and issuing the decision notice to the Head of Planning and Development, subject to securing a deed of variation, to complete the list of conditions and allow the expiry of the publicity. Should the remaining public consultation raise issues that would result in substantive changes to the officer recommendation, the Head of Planning and Development, in consultation with the Chair, will decide whether the application should be resubmitted for consideration by the committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that. So we have one speaker, on behalf of the agents, Ben Parks. You've got three minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon all. My name is Ben Parks and I'm the planning consultant at Savills, acting on behalf of the Myers Group. The Myers Group are a family-owned business based in Huddersfield who provide products, services and materials to the construction industry. They employ approximately 350 people across West Yorkshire. Their interest in the land resonates from the mineral extraction at Thewlis Lane Quarry. This planning application comes under Section 73 to vary and remove a variety of conditions from a previous planning application from 2013 for the extraction of minerals. The majority of the proposed changes to the conditions relate to the restoration of the actively mined quarry east of Tulis Lane. As per the current planning consent for mineral extraction, the site would be restored to agricultural use. Since then, the site has been allocated to deliver 500 dwellings in the adopted local plan. This is on the basis of first completing any mining works and then restoring the quarry hold to make it level with the surrounding virgin ground via an engineered backfill. However, due to various technical and viability issues, it is no longer possible to restore the quarry hold via an engineered backfill. Therefore, residential development cannot be delivered as envisaged in the Kirklees local plan. As such, the Myers Group are now seeking to revise the agreed restoration strategy at the site through this Section 73 application. This would see it restored to a lower level and then grassed in order to provide public open space. The proposed restoration would retain the existing public right-of-way through the site. This low-level restoration is more affordable, quicker, has lower carbon emissions and would provide public open space for the local community. It would also enable the Myers Group to continue to operate in this location, minimising any disruption for the wider business. As demonstrated in the viability appraisals, an engineered backfill would make the site allocation unviable, whereas the suggested revised approach would mean that some dwellings could still be viably delivered at the quarry site in line with the site allocation. It is accepted that an unintended consequence of this low-level restoration approach would mean the site allocation cannot be delivered in full. However, given the viability considerations, it's considered delivering some dwellings in this location is better than delivering no dwellings at all. The proposed amendments seek to deliver a revised restoration scheme which is considered to be better for the environment, better for the Myers Group as a business and better for the general public through the provision of public open space. We would therefore respectfully request that you support this long-standing local business in supporting this application which seeks to agree a revised restoration strategy for the quarry site. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members? Anybody? So, yeah, Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to propose that we accept this on the grounds that well, partly on the grounds that we are getting some housing development out of this rather than nothing at all, because I think that anything to stop us continually being accused of not having enough housing supply. I think from that point of view it's important, but it does seem to me to be quite a good solution. I'm assuming that the whole point of an engineered backfill is that there are guarantees attached to that no voids will be left underneath what is being backfilled. I'm sort of being. There have been instances where sinkholes have appeared in various places. So perhaps I'm being too cautious, but I think maybe what I'd like is some reassurance that we have got it in writing, if you like, that we can safely put houses or indeed anything else on top of this backfill. But otherwise, I would like to move approval.
Matthias, you want to respond on that?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Pinnock. So you're not being asked to approve any houses today, yeah?
No,
yeah, just to be clear.
I know that, but that is what is proposed.
Yeah. Well, originally, very quickly, because I appreciate members have had a long afternoon here, but very quickly, the original idea was that the quarry would be refilled back up to the level of the cliff edge at the top, yeah, and that would be a fill material capable of then having houses built on top of it, as well as the surrounding cliff area, and that would have got you your circa 500. So the real pertinent issue for members to just not dwell on, but just to ensure they have in their mind when they make a decision here is that the consequence, it's unfortunate as the agent has said, but the consequence is there will be circa 300 less houses delivered than the plan envisaged. So we're losing out in a sense on that delivery number. But the justification as to why the quarry should be left almost as it is now, with some low-level landscaping to soften it, is that it's so expensive to do. At the time the original permission was granted to refill it up to the level we've talked about, I don't think that cost was envisaged. It's simply that. And we've tested it, and it is multi-million pounds to do the restoration, and it probably would affect Myers as a viable business if we insisted upon it, and therefore would they ever do it? So you've got an application to vary it, it will regularise things. There are a few additional points Fazana's raised that they also want permission for to extend the life of the quarrying. On the face of it, yes, you will get some houses eventually, but clearly the consequences are here and now. We'll have a shortage of housing delivery in the long run, but I still think overall it's acceptable. Hope that helps, Chair. Thank you for your time.
So just bring Councillor Stockland because he was first, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Armour. Councillor Stockland.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's better than nothing. Yeah, it's always you say. I accept the viability report assessed by the independent authority, I said on the previous meeting. And I think we have to accept it. And we have to avoid job losses. As agent has 358 jobs going on. We need to keep the employment as well. Another one, we already have approved the big application just across the road. Black Cat spot where is 800 houses. So there is another application I believe is coming up as well nearby, a bit well. Compensate those houses there. So I think the resident might be quite happy over there. I know we lose some houses, we need some houses, but still, as I said, better than that. So I fully agree with it. So I'm happy to second the officer recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Armour?
I was just going to second it.
Okay, we've got a move. Did you want Councillor Lawson? Yep.
Thank you, Chair. As a councillor for Crossland Moor and Neverton Ward, I'm actually delighted to see that there will be a reduce in housing on that site, with the 700 houses already going to happen on the Black Cat site, so I'm happy to support this.
Good.
Okay, so we've had it proposed in a seconder for the office recommendation, Sheila, so we'll go to the vote on that.
Yes, so you're voting on delegating approval, including the if there's any substantive changes to the officer recommendation as a result of the remaining publicity period. Councillor Socko?
For.
Councillor Lawson?
For.
Councillor Pinnock?
For.
Councillor Armour?
For.
Councillor Homewood?
For.
That's agreed, unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for your attendance. That's the end of the meeting. See you all next time.